So, as some of you from watching my channel might know, I'm a bit of a Star Wars fan, especially the expanded universe. Uh, I don't know how many of you, well, actually, anybody watching this video is probably going to be aware of the decanonization of the EU and how a lot of fans, myself included, are a bit upset about that, especially if you watch my video about the death of an identity. Um, So I recently watched Matt Wilkins' latest video, which was the Star Wars Expanded Universe, Lucas, AMC, and News. Uh, I have to say, I like what he's doing over on his channel. It's a great thing, putting together all the EU stuff and just showing how wonderfully it all fits together and how much work went into it. One of the things I've been seeing in the Facebook groups and his videos and stuff like that is the argument that they had to get rid of the canon to liberate themselves, to tell their own stories and make it easier to tell stories. I don't know why I'm saying so much in this one. Got a bit of a sore throat, so I'm sorry about that. Lowering the quality of this show. It will pass. Anyways, personally, I don't buy it. The whole, do away with the canon to make it easier to tell stories. I'm sorry, but I'm a writer, not just a political, religious writer on my blog or anything like that. I've actually written fiction, have for years. Even got a book that I've pretty much finished. That's unfortunately on the other computer I can't get to right now, but I have written the book. And I can tell you, the hardest thing about making good stories is creating everything. And I know that sounds stupid because, that's the point, isn't it? Well, sort of. The point is to tell a story. And to tell a story, you have to have characters, and you have to have a world, and you have to have events and people and places and so on and so forth. Star Wars, arguably, is one of the easiest franchises to write for because so much of that world building has already been done. It's already been accomplished. Planets are laid out, peoples, races, languages, histories, everything. It's all there. So you can focus on taking your new character or taking an existing character and putting them in your story and allowing that story to unfold with those characters. You don't have to, you don't even have to come up with your own characters. There are so many characters there that you can use to tell a story and tell really good stories. So I don't buy this whole needing to decanonize to make it easier to tell stories, because now they've got to make their worlds. Now they've got to make their history. Now they've got to come up with people and places and things which were already there. And it's like, oh, well, I can make my own story now with my own people and places and things. Well, you could have done that before. You just had to fit them into existing history. I mean, it's a bit like writing historical fiction. Heck, it's a bit like writing modern thriller fiction. You take events that are existent and you just use them to shape the world and the people. And now they have to go back and it's like, well, this person was shaped by this event. Well, what was this event? Well, now I have to go and tell the whole story of that event rather than say, oh, hey, this was the event. Here, it's in a book. Go read that story, learn everything you need to, and you're good. Now you've got to take time in your film to tell the briefest version of that story you can that will still have emotional impact. And nobody's going to know what you're talking about. Well, then you're going to have to go and you're going to have to flesh out that event, and you can do that in a book, but then you've created a new canon that now you're tied to. And you can't just go off willy-nilly. You created a fixed event in your story. Because that's what stories do. They create fixed events that shape coming events and happening events. Our past dictates our present and defines our future. Well, you can remove the past and say, well, now my present and future are undictated about, but it's like, No, because there was a past, and now you have to go and illustrate that past. You have to explain that past. It's like, let's take a real world example. Let's say I have a character set in the modern world and new universe. The world as we know it doesn't exist, it's something else. New world based on our world. What if our world was a role playing game? Type thing. You know. And then, well, I mentioned something happened and it was called World War II. Well, what was that? Now you have to go back and explain it. That's what the whole freaking prequel trilogy was. Explaining one event named in the episode A New Hope. That's what they've done with decanonization. To explain one event in the past, George Lucas essentially had to go and make 3 movies. Congratulations. You can't go back and make 3 prequels again. This is episode 7. We've had 1 through 6 already. You can't go back. You can't reference an event and go back and make that now. Now you can make a book, but what's the point when you already had a book with a story you could have used for it? Oh, I wanted to make my own story. So? You still could have. Now you're just going to make up an event to explain something, and you're just going to leave it hanging there. And you're either going to have somebody else come in and have to tell your story. They won't be able to make their own. All because you were too bloody selfish. Because you wanted the freedom to say 2 sentences about something in the past, and you didn't want to have to worry about making that work with an entire galactic history. I hate to say it, but that's incredibly lazy as a creator. If you want to tell your own original stories, and I guess this is directed at J.J. Abrams because he's the one who's entirely behind ditching the canon and ditching the script that was previously written up that worked with the canon. Because I think to an extent, Disney might have been willing to keep the canon. But J.J. Abrams was who they picked as a director, and J.J. Abrams said, fuck it. So, as much as we rip on the mouse, some of this I don't know is the mouse's fault. Because they spent $4 billion buying Star Wars. And out of that, the movies might have been the biggest part to some people. But the books and the games and the entire EU was what kept it alive for like 30-something years. That's what made it worth $4 billion. It wasn't just the movies. Please, the movies, $2 billion maybe. But the fact that there was this entire universe with all these dedicated fans who had gobbled up this entire history, that's what made it $4 billion. And you don't just throw something like that away. And I suspect Disney figured it wouldn't be that big a deal because, hey, they got Marvel and they can do whatever the heck they want, and they pretty much let Marvel do whatever the heck it wants. Mostly because I suspect they bought Marvel as a throwaway, figuring it would fail, and it's managed to completely succeed. Whereas Star Wars, I think they took a bit more control, and then they handed control over to J.J. Abrams because, well, he made a good Star Trek movie. That must mean he can make a good Star Wars movie. The problem is while they're both sci-fi, it's 2 completely different ideas. So, I don't know how well he can actually make that work because the original trilogy was about the triumph of good over evil. And to me at least, the prequel trilogy is the triumph of humanity over idealism. When you think about it, the prequel trilogy is a very human story. A man goes evil to save the woman he loves. A politician gains power because he thinks he's the only one who can save the galaxy. Human need, human greed, just pure humanity triumphed over the ideals that the Galactic Republic represented. So, what's the third trilogy going to be about? Because it's not even going to be J.J. Abrams' trilogy. He's only in one movie. And then they got somebody else to direct it who basically may have wanted to use the entire EU as a basis for their films. I mean, George Lucas gave them an outline of how to do it. Here are 3 movies you can do carrying on about, Han, Leia, and Luke's kids that fits completely in the canon. And Disney was ready to go for it. So Abrams killed that. And Abrams is walking away after one movie. So an ungracious part of me might wonder if Abrams is going to scuttle Star Wars so it can never compete with his Star Trek projects again. But we'll have to see about that. What may happen is it'll be so bad that Disney will just turn around, declare the EU canon again, and the J.J. Abrams movie a one-off failure that doesn't exist anymore. That's the alternate reality. If we're really lucky. But I don't know if we'll be that lucky. But anyways, I mean, if you want to tell your own stories, make your own universe. But if you want to come in and make stories in somebody else's universe, respect their work. Respect everything they have done. Respect all of those who have come before you, especially in something like Star Wars, which has been created by so many people. I mean, there's several hundred Star Wars books out there. There have been at least, several authors who've done repeated works. I mean, Timothy Zahn's written like 12, I think. Michael A. Stackpole's written at least, close to a dozen himself. But even then, there are so many authors who've come in and worked on Star Wars. Don't have the arrogance to think you're better than them. Okay? You are but one person in an entire universe. And that universe doesn't have to revolve around your whims and your wants. It doesn't. Every author, every creator who has stepped up to Star Wars has had to acknowledge the work of those that have come before, and they've had guidelines about where they were supposed to go. So, I don't know why J.J. Abrams thinks he's better than all those people, because he isn't. He's done good work. He's come up with some amazing stuff over the years, and he's come up with some stuff that eventually just kind of, flopped. I remember Alias, which is where he got his start out. When it started, it was one of the most brilliant series on television. By the end of it, you didn't know what was going on, and you stopped watching before the end of the show. So, I'm sorry, Mr. Abrams. You did good work with Star Trek. And that's taking you far. But you've taken it too far. And you're being lazy about it. So, I'm sorry. That's just not good in my book. Anyways, Lucas, apparently, by all accounts, is done with Star Wars. It's over. He's done, off to his own thing, and I don't think he's even going to care about the universe anymore. I don't know if it's because he's really sad about what's happening with it, or if it's just one of those things where, hey, I've done this story for 30 years of my life. I want to do something else because, goddammit, I'm tired of it. Which, honestly, more power to him, man. As he's put it, he's told his story in the Star Wars universe, and it's up to everyone else to tell their stories now. Which was really one of the beautiful things about it. So, anyways, I'm going to keep this short. Going to go ahead and cut off this video, make it, probably the shortest video I've ever done here. May the Force be with you. And let's hope we get our canon back.